So we are reading Ikigai Chapter 4, page 69 of the book and page 47 of the PDF. The advantages of flow and disadvantages of distraction.
Advantages of flow is a focused mind, living in the present. You're free from worry. The hours fly by. You feel in control. We prepare thoroughly. We know what we should be doing at any given moment. Our mind is clear and overcomes all obstacles to the flow of thought. It's pleasant. Our ego fades. We are not the ones controlling the activity or task we are doing. The task is leading us. Disadvantages of distraction: a wandering mind, thinking about the past and the future, concerns about our daily life and the people around us invade our thoughts. Every minute seems endless. We lose control and fail to complete the task at hand, or other tasks or people keep us from our work. We act without being prepared. We frequently get stuck and don't know how to proceed. We are plagued by doubts, concerns, and low self esteem. It's boring and exhausting. Constant self criticism, our ego is present, and we feel frustrated.
Okay, so let's take one point at a time. When we are in the flow, our mind is focused. So we have one pointed attention. We know exactly what is going to happen. How are we going to do it? Okay, so the flow allows you to be uh, totally at it. Okay, the other thing is that if you are distracted, your mind is constantly going to wander. I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. And as we have been discussing many times, we can only do one thing at a time. So if I'm doing something and I'm thinking of something else, then I'm not doing what I'm doing and I'm not doing what I'm thinking of. So it totally affects our performance levels. Living in the present, which is when we are in the flow, we are in the now, we are in the present. When we are distracted, we are either in the past or in the future. Now, as discussed, you can only be on the right side of the grid. For manifestation to take place, you need to be on the right side of the grid. But if you are in the past or the future, generally speaking, if you look at your thoughts, you will find that you are always on the left side of the grid, and no manifestation can take place from the left side of the grid. When we are in the flow, everything drops. Okay, we go into something called the zone, which many sportsmen experience, where they can't do anything wrong. Everything just works like clockwork. Okay, when you are in that state of mind, you're not thinking of the issues or the problems that are there. So all thoughts of worry drop, they go into the dustbin. Okay, but when you are distracted, you're constantly thinking about the issues that are there around you. When you are in the flow, you do not get tired. Hours can flow by and you will still be in that state of consciousness. You will still be doing that activity that you're doing effortlessly. Okay. But when you're distracted, then you're constantly looking, Are ye kab khatam hoga? When will this finish? When will this finish? So every moment feels endless. Okay. Then we feel in control. So what does this imply? When you are in the flow, you know that everything's going to happen at the perfect time and in the perfect way. So a sense of tremendous amount of control comes in, but it is not an egoistic control. It is a state, it is a control which develops and comes out of flow. Okay, it is not coming out of ego. When we are distracted, we constantly lose control of ourselves and we fail to complete the tasks that are there, and we keep the blame game on. It again, when we go into the control dramas, when we are not in control, we feel we are not in control, we will attempt to play the control drama. So we will attempt to absorb energy from the other people, not creating a positive cycle where we give energy and we get back energy. We attempt to grab energy from the other person, and that becomes a huge problem. When we are in the flow, you don't just hit the flow just like that. A lot of preparation work has to take place before you hit the flow. Now, for example, when you're driving a car, you do so without thinking. Okay, now when you've driven the car for a long time, you don't think of pressing the clutch, brake, or the steering wheel or the gear. It just happens naturally. So a simple example of flow is when you're driving the car. Okay, you're not thinking about anything. But if when you start up, you have to practice a lot. So to hit the flow, practice becomes very important. You have to keep hitting that state of consciousness, accessing that state of consciousness to make it real and reality in your life on a day-to-day basis. When you are in the flow, a sense of intuitiveness comes in. You are guided as to, okay, what you need to do. I've mentioned this before. I have a lot of stuff to do, but I'm not bothered by it because whatever I need to do shines bright. Okay, so it just tells me that, okay, now you go and do this just now, and I don't bother to think about it. I'll just go and do that task. And I find that there is synchronicity in all the tasks getting completed. It just simply happens one at a time without any stress. I'm not taking any stress about it. Okay. Now, when we are distracted, we frequently will get stuck. We won't know what to do, how to do, what to do. When we are in the flow, the mind is clear and there are no obstacles in the flow of thought. There is a gentleness, there's a compassion. It just happens. Okay. But when we are in distraction, always there'll be self-doubt, self, the beating up that we keep talking. Don't beat yourself up. You're constantly criticizing yourself when you're in distraction. When we are in the flow, it's like it's a spiritual connect which happens, and you know that you are not doing it, it is happening. So there is no place for ego in the flow, so the ego tends to drop. Okay. And if, of course, if you are in distraction, then you're constantly going to be self criticism is always there. Whenever you're operating out of ego, you will be constantly beating yourself down because you can never be good enough for your ego. There is always something better. Shivangla, you're on.
Flow in Japan. Flow in Japan.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Flow in Japan, Takumis, engineers, geniuses, and otakus. What do Takumis, artisans, engineers, inventors, and otakus, fans of anime and manga, have in common? They all understand the importance of flowing with their ikigai at all times. One widespread stereotype about people in Japan is that they're exceptionally dedicated and hardworking. Even though some Japanese people say they look like they're working harder than they really are, there is no doubt, though, about their ability to be completely absorbed in a task, or about their perseverance when there is a problem to be solved. One of the first words one learns when starting Japanese lessons is ganbaru, which means to persevere or to stay firm by doing one's best.
So what, see, this is important over here. Some Japanese people say they look like they are working harder than they actually are. So now if they are working with their ikigai, that means that they are totally involved in the task and they are in the flow. So when they are involved in the task and in the flow, then they are not really working hard, because when you are in the flow, you're not working hard. It is just happening. Okay, go ahead, please.
Japanese people often apply themselves to even the most basic tasks with an intensity that borders on obsession. We see this in all kinds of contexts, from the retirees taking meticulous care of their rice fields in the mountains of Nagano to the college students working the weekend shift in convenience stores known as konbinis. If you go to Japan, you'll experience this attention to detail firsthand in almost every transaction.
So in Japan, whatever they do it with a lot of dedication. And they want to put their full, they want to put their 100% on it. So they always give it their best shot. I can't say always to everyone, but most of the time they would be giving it their best shot.
Walk into one of the stores that sell handcrafted objects in Naha, Kanazawa, or Kyoto, and you'll discover that Japan is a treasure trove of traditional craftwork. The people of Japan have a unique talent for creating new technologies while preserving artisanal traditions and techniques. The art of the takumi. Toyota employs artisans who are able to make a certain type of screw by hand. These takumi, or experts in a particular manual skill, are extremely important to Toyota, and they are hard to replace. Some of them are the only people who know how to perform the exact skill, and it doesn't seem as though a new generation is going to take up the mantle.
So what is happening? They perfected the art. Japanese, they've perfected the art of one person doing one task and doing that task to such perfection, and they became so efficient in it, which increased the efficiency of the entire manufacturing process.
Turntable needles are another example. They're produced almost exclusively in Japan, where you can find the last remaining people who know how to use the machinery required to make these precision needles and who are trying to pass on their knowledge to their descendants.
So now everywhere the same issue is there, even in Japan, that the person who had that knowledge, the younger generation is not willing to take up that task. So we have this problem in our villages also, even at the level of farmers. My father looks after 3 or 4 villages in the countryside in Bengal, and what he found was that he was doing a lot of work. He was giving fruit trees, he made roads, bathrooms, etc., whatever. And then he started finding that there was one day he was talking to a group of youth, and they had passed class 10. So they are saying that we are educated, so I will not till the field. And in the village, they were telling people that we are going to the town to do some work. We've joined an office or whatever. But what they were actually doing, they were coming into town and they were pickpocketing. When Baba actually poked them, it turned out they were doing pickpocketing in the city and coming back and telling everyone in the village that we are working in some office. So now this becomes a very, very problematic thing. If the youngsters are not taking up what they need to take up, then again it becomes a problem.
Ma, please don't. We met a Takumi on a visit to Kumano, a small town near Hiroshima. We were there for the day, working on a photo essay for one of the most famous brands of makeup brushes in the West. The billboard welcoming visitors to Kumano shows a mascot holding a large brush. In addition to the brush factories, the town is full of little houses and vegetable gardens. Heading further in, you can see several Shinto shrines at the base of the mountains that surround the town. We spent hours taking photos in factories full of people in orderly rows, each doing a single task, such as painting the handles of the brushes or loading boxes of them onto trucks, before we realized we still hadn't seen anyone actually putting bristles into the brush heads.
So again, you've got this. So everyone was performing a single specific task.
After we asked about this and got the runaround several times, the president of one company agreed to show us how it was done. He led us out of the building and asked us to get into his car. After a 5-minute drive, we parked next to another smaller structure and climbed the stairs. He opened a door and we walked into a small room filled with windows that let in lovely natural light. In the middle of the room was a woman wearing a mask. You could see only her eyes. She was so focused on choosing individual bristles for the brushes, gracefully moving her hands and fingers, using scissors and combs to sort the bristles, that she didn't even notice our presence.
So now she was so focused on her task that nothing could distract her from her task. So total focus, totally in the flow. So when she comes into that state, she shifts into a flow. Now nothing can disturb her.
Her movements were so quick, it was hard to tell what she was doing. The president of the company interrupted her to let her know that we'd be taking photos as she worked. We couldn't see her mouth, but the glint in her eye and the cheerful inflection in her speech let us know she was smiling. She looked happy and proud, talking about her work and responsibilities.
So now in Japan, whatever they are doing, they are proud to be doing that. Okay, there is no depletion, there is no shame in doing any task. So what are they looking at? Whatever task they are doing it with full dedication. Okay, yes, Nita, you have a question. Nita, you raised your hand. Okay, go ahead.
We had to use extremely fast shutter speeds to capture her movements. Her hands danced and flowed in concert with her tools and the bristles she was sorting.
So just imagine, to make the camera catch it, they had to use extremely fast. So just imagine how fast her hands must have been moving. And that can only happen with pure, it becomes total muscle memory. That is, there is no thought at all. It's just happening.
The president told us that this Takumi was one of the most important people in the company. Even though she was hidden away in a separate building, every bristle of every brush the company made passed through her hands.
So you can imagine the kind of responsibility on that one lady.
Steve Jobs in Japan. Apple co founder Steve Jobs was a big fan of Japan. Not only did he visit the Sony factories in the 1980s and adopt many of their methods when he founded Apple, he was also captivated by the simplicity and quality of Japanese porcelain in Kyoto. It was not, however, an artisan from Kyoto who won Steve Jobs' devotion, but rather a Takumi from Toyama named Yokio Shagunaga, who used a technique called Echu Setu Yaki, known only by a few. On a visit to Kyoto, Job heard of an exhibition of Shakunaga's work. He immediately understood that there was something special about Shakunaga's porcelain. As a matter of fact, he bought several cups, vases, and plates and went back to the show 3 times that week. Jobs returned to Kyoto several times over the course of his life in search of inspiration and ended up meeting Shakunaga in person. It is said that Jobs had many questions for him, almost all of them about the fabrication process and the type of porcelain he used. Shakunaga explained that he used white porcelain he extracted himself from the mountains in the Toyama prefecture, making him the only artist of his ilk familiar with the fabrication process of porcelain objects from their origins in the mountains to their final form, an authentic takumi.
So again, you are doing everything from the start to the finish. So you are totally dedicated to that particular trade.
Jobs was so impressed that he considered going to Toyama to see the mountain where Shakunaga got his porcelain, but thought better of it when he heard that it was more than 4 hours by train from Kyoto. In an interview after Jobs' death, Shakunaga said he was very proud that his work had been appreciated by the man who created the iPhone. He added that Jobs' last purchase from him had been a set of 12 teacups. Jobs had asked for something special, a new style. To satisfy this request, Shakunaga made 150 teacups in the process of testing out new ideas. Of these, he chose the 12 best and sent them to the Jobs family.
So again, when you're doing tasks like this, okay, when you're totally dedicated, then at times perfection becomes very, very important. So you will disregard anything that even has a small blemish. You will not accept it.
Ever since his trip to Japan, Jobs was fascinated and inspired by the country's artisans, engineers, especially at Sony, philosophy, especially Zen, and cuisine, especially sushi. Sophisticated simplicity. What do Japanese artisans, engineers, Zen philosophy, and cuisine have in common? Simplicity and attention to detail. It is not a lazy simplicity, but a sophisticated one that searches out new frontiers, always taking the object, the body and mind, or the cuisine to the next level according to one's ikigai.
So again, simplicity and sophistication. So it's beautiful, it's very gentle, it's very compassionate, and it's simple at the same time. So elegance coupled with simplicity.
As Csikszentmihalyi would say, the key is always having a meaningful challenge to overcome in order to maintain flow. The documentary Jiro Dreams of Sushi gives us another example of a takumi, this time in the kitchen. Its protagonist has been making sushi every day for more than 8 years and owns a small sushi restaurant near the Ginza subway station in Tokyo. He and his son go every day to the famous Tsukiji fish market and choose the best fish to bring back to the restaurant.
So again, the key is always having a meaningful challenge to overcome in order to maintain flow. So there always has to be some kind of a stimulation, some kind of a thing that you need to excel it. Okay, if I can do this, I'm better. If I can do this, I'm better. If I can do this, I'm better. So you're constantly challenging yourself, raising the bar. That is one thing about the flow. You will constantly raise the bar for yourself. And also again, attention to detail. In the next paragraph, it's attention to detail. They would not just have the fish delivered. They would go themselves to buy the fish and see what they were buying. It was not a case of just, okay, anything will work. Just send it along and we will use it. So again, they were dedicated. Like the other person who was doing the porcelain stuff, he could have also just told someone, okay, you send me the porcelain. No, he used to go and dig it out himself to see exactly what he was getting.
In the documentary, we see one of Jiro's apprentices learning to make tamago, a thin, slightly sweet omelette. No matter how hard he tries, he can't get Jiro's approval. He keeps practicing for years until he finally does.
So again, total perfection. They don't believe in anything which is below perfect.
Why does the apprentice refuse to give up? Doesn't he get bored cooking eggs every day? No, because making sushi is his ikigai too.
So once you find your ikigai, then whatever happens around it, it does not bother you. You will keep striving on that path.
Both Jiro and his son are culinary artists. They don't get bored when they cook, they achieve a state of flow. They enjoy themselves completely when they are in the kitchen. That is their happiness, their ikigai. They've learned to take pleasure in their work, to lose their sense of time.
So again, total description of the flow. If you go back to the chart, it shows total flow. They are in the moment. They are they are just doing what needs to be done. They are not thinking about what they have to do. It is just happening around them, and they lose a sense of time They are not bothered about how much time or what time it is taking.
Beyond the close relationship between father and son, which helps them keep the challenge going each day, they also work in a quiet, peaceful environment that allows them to concentrate.
So again, to achieve the flow, you have to have the environment which allows you to go into the flow.
Even after receiving a 3-star rating from Michelin, they never considered opening other locations or expanding the business. They serve just 10 patrons at a time at the bar of their small restaurant. Jiro's family isn't looking to make money. Instead, they value good working conditions and creating an environment in which they can flow while making the best sushi in the world.
So again, what does it say? That even after receiving a 3-star rating, they did not want to expand. Why? Because the perfection that they bought into their trade would not be maintained by anyone else. Now, if they expanded, then they could not have maintained that same level of perfection. So they did not expand. And again, when you are in the flow, you're so satisfied with the process itself that money starts to take a backseat. Okay, so you are shifting from materialistic bent and thoughts of mind into spiritualistic thoughts of mind. So when you are going into the spiritual, naturally the material stuff automatically starts to drop.
Jiro, like Shakunaga, begins his work at the source. He goes to the fish market to find the best tuna. Shakunaga goes to the mountains to find the best porcelain. When they get down to work, both become one with the object they are creating. This unity with the object that they reach in a state of flow takes on special meaning in Japan, where according to Shintoism, forests, trees, and objects have a kami, spirit or god within them.
So now when they get down to work, both become one with the object that they are creating. This is a, this is showing that there is a merger. There is a merger between what they are doing, the each and every item that they're using in the creation. They start merging with that. And only when they merge with that, the spirit of the item, the spirit of all the material they are using start to become one, and that integration starts to take place. This is beautiful. This is really beautiful.
When someone, whether an artist, an engineer, or a chef, sets out to create something, his or her responsibility is to use nature to give it life while respecting that nature at every moment.
Now, this is important, okay? It is his or her responsibility to use nature to give it life. So everything has life. And when we commune, when we connect with everything, we can actually communicate with everything. So what is the essence that we are putting into our creation? What is it that we are putting into our creation becomes very, very important.
During this process, the artisan becomes one with the object and flows with it. An iron worker would say that metal has a life of its own, just as someone making ceramics would say that clay does. The Japanese are skilled at bringing nature and technology together, not man versus nature, but rather a union of the two.
So again, they're not fighting with nature. They are not attempting to control nature. They are dedicated to integrate nature into whatever they are doing. So they are taking a holistic view, not an individualistic kind of a view about stuff or a selfish view. It's always a holistic view.
The purity of Ghibli. There are those who say that Shinto value of being connected with nature is vanishing. One of the harshest critics of this loss is another artist with a clearly defined ikigai. Hayao Miyazaki, the director of the animated films produced by Studio Ghibli. In nearly all of his films, we see humans, technology, fantasy, and nature in a state of conflict, and in the end, coming together. One of the most poignant metaphors in his film Spirited Away is an obese spirit covered in trash that represents the pollution of the rivers.
So he's representing the pollution in that particular character.
In Miyazaki's films, forests have personalities, trees have feelings, and robos befriend birds. Considered a national treasure by the Japanese government, Miyazaki is an artist capable of becoming completely absorbed in his art. He uses a cell phone from the late 1990s and he makes his entire team draw by hand. He directs his films by rendering on paper even the tiniest detail, achieving flow by drawing, not by using a computer. Thanks to this obsession on the director's part, Studio Ghibli is one of the only studios in the world where almost the entire production process is carried out using traditional techniques.
So again, now any artist, whatever the artist is thinking while making the thing that you're making, let's say a painting, right? All your thoughts are in the painting. As we discussed, that if I draw a line, I asked this question in the Vastu workshop and the energy field workshop. Suppose I draw a line on the whiteboard. Now I ask this question that does that line have energy or it doesn't? Okay, so the answer can be varied, but the line does have energy. Simply saying that first I had to think of drawing the line, then I had to turn around, take a step, bring a pen, open the cover, turn around, use my hand to make the line. Now, if even one of those things did not happen, the line would not be there. So the entire, all the actions which took place to make the line come into being is in that line. So whatever we are thinking when we are doing anything is in the thing that we are doing. So even the artists, all these, all his people, when they are drawing, they are putting their emotions into the drawing, and that's what makes the ultimate picture become more powerful than any computer animation design.
Those who have visited Studio Ghibli know that it is fairly typical on a given Sunday to see a solitary individual tucked away in a corner, hard at work. A man in simple clothes who will greet them with an Ohio, hello, without looking up. Miyazaki is so passionate about his work that he spends many Sundays in the studio, enjoying the state of flow, putting his ikigai above all else. Visitors know that under no circumstances is one to bother Miyazaki, who is known for his quick temper, especially if he is interrupted while drawing.
So again, total dedication and total passion. That is what he enjoys doing. So a holiday for him is actually doing his work.
In 2013, Miyazaki announced he was going to retire. To commemorate his retirement, the television station NHK made a documentary showing him in his last days at work. He is drawing in nearly every scene of the film. In one scene, several of his colleagues are seen coming out of a meeting, and there he is, drawing in a corner, paying no attention to them. In another scene, he is shown walking to work on December 30th, a national holiday in Japan, and opening the doors of Studio Ghibli so he can spend the day there drawing alone. Miyazaki can't stop drawing. The day after his retirement, instead of going on vacation or staying at home, he went to Studio Ghibli and sat down to draw. His colleagues put on their best poker faces, not knowing what to say. 1 year later, he announced wouldn't make any more feature films, but that he would keep on drawing until the day he died. Can someone really retire if he is passionate about what he does?
So now this is important, right? If you truly enjoy what you're doing, it is your ikigai. That again, the four principles come into way. What is it that you're passionate about? What is it that you want to do? is it, are you good at it? Is it good or something that the world needs, and can you be paid for it? If again all these four tenets are met, then you have your ikigai. I don't know how many of you have done the exercise, but I truly suggest all of you should make out this list and figure out what is your ikigai.
The recluses. It is not only the Japanese who have the capacity, there are artists and scientists all over the world with strong, clear ikigais. They do what they love until their dying day. The last thing Einstein wrote before closing his eyes forever was a formula that attempted to unite all the forces of the universe in a single theory. When he died, he was still doing what he loved. If he hadn't been a physicist, he said, he would have been happy as a musician. Wasn't he? When he wasn't focused on physics or mathematics, he enjoyed playing the violin. Reaching a state of flow while working on his formulas or playing music, his two ikigais, brought him endless pleasure.
So again, Einstein had found his ikigai.
Many such artists might seem misanthropic or reclusive, but what they are really doing is protecting the time that brings them happiness, sometimes at the expense of their other aspects of their lives. They are outliers who apply the principles of flow to their lives to an extreme.
So again,
Another,
they are so focused on that one thing that the other things are not paid so much attention to.
another example of this kind of artist is the novelist Haruki Murakami. He sees only a close circle of friends and appears in public in Japan only once every few years. Artists know how important it is to protect their space, control their environment, and be free of distractions if they want to flow with their ikigai.
So again, not allowing any distraction to come, anything that will waver their field.
Microflow, enjoying mundane tasks. But what happens when we have to say, do the laundry, mow the lawn, or attend to paperwork? Is there a way to make these mundane tasks enjoyable? Near the Shinjuku subway station in one of the neural centers of Tokyo, there is a supermarket that still employs elevator operators. The elevators are fairly standard and could easily be operated by the customers. But the store prefers to provide the service of someone holding the door open for you, pushing the button for your floor, and bowing as you exit. If you ask around, you learn that there is one elevator operator who has been doing the same job since 2004. She is always smiling and enthusiastic about her work.
See, now this is important, right? She's just pressing a button in the elevator, but she is still very, very proud, very, very enthusiastic, and truly enjoying the work that she is doing. So, no work is shameful, every work is beautiful.
How is she able to enjoy such a job? Doesn't she get bored doing something so repetitive? On closer inspection, it becomes clear that the elevator operator is not just pushing buttons, but is instead performing a whole sequence of movements. She begins by greeting the customers with a song like salutation, followed by a bow and a welcoming wave of the hand. Then she presses the elevator button with a graceful movement, as though she is a geisha offering a client a cup of tea. Cheek Send Me High calls this microflow. We've all been bored in a class or at a conference and started doodling to keep ourselves entertained, or whistled while painting a wall. If we're not truly being challenged, we get bored and add a layer of complexity to amuse ourselves. Our ability to turn routine tasks into moments of microflow into something we enjoy is key to our being happy, since we all have to do such tasks.
So, again, whenever we are totally immersed in what we are doing, We can just shift our state of consciousness. And when that happens, things really start becoming beautiful. And the idea is to enjoy everything that we do. The moment we start enjoying everything that we do, we put ourselves on the right side of the grid. And that's when, again, I am constantly repeating where the manifestation takes place.
Even Bill Gates washes the dishes every night. He says he enjoys it, that it helps him relax and clear his mind, and that he tries to do it a little better each day. Following an established order or set of rules he's made for himself, plates first, forks second, and so on.
So
It's
again, you're constantly pushing to better yourself and do things more efficiently and constantly improving in whatever you're doing.
it's one of his daily moments of microflow. Richard Feynman, one of the most important physicists of all time, also took pleasure in routine tasks. W. Daniel Hillis, one of the founders of the supercomputer manufacturer Thinking Machines, hired Feynman to work on the development of a computer that could handle parallel processing when he was already world famous. He says Feynman showed up on his first day of work and said, "Okay, boss, what's my assignment?" They didn't have anything prepared, so they asked him to work on a certain mathematical problem. He immediately realized they were giving him an irrelevant task to keep him busy and said, "That sounds like a bunch of baloney. Give me something real to do." So they sent him to a nearby shop to buy office supplies, and he completed his assignment with a smile on his face. When he didn't have something important to do or needed to rest his mind, Feynman dedicated himself to microflowing, say, painting the office walls. Weeks later, after visiting the Thinking Machine's office, a group of investors declared, "You have a Nobel laureate in there painting walls and soldering circuits." Instant vacations, getting there through meditation. Training the mind can get us to a place of flow more quickly. Meditation is one way to exercise our mental muscles. There are many types of meditation, but they all have the same objective: calming the mind, observing our thoughts and emotions, and centering our focus on a single object.
Okay, so again, state of no thought. So all meditation wants to take you to only one place, and that is a state of no thought.
The basic practice involving sitting with a straight back and focusing on your breath. Anyone can do it, and you feel a difference just after one session. By fixing your attention on the air moving in and out of your nose, you can slow the torrent of thoughts and clear your mental
So
horizons.
that's the first stage. Okay. And this is the first stage of the heart math process also to be able to get control of your HRV, your heart rate variance. So through your breath, you can actually control your heart rate or your heartbeat. And one of the first things that actually senses any kind of disturbance in your environment, etc., is the magnetic field which is generated from the heart. So the heart can actually feel all the disturbance. Now at the Institute of HeartMath, they've been able to measure it even beyond one kilometer. The vibration of the heart. So what happens today? You walk into a room, okay, and when you walk into that room, you suddenly don't feel comfortable. You've not even interacted with anyone. What is happening is your field has gone into the room and already assessed what is happening in the room, and then you come back. Okay, so again, what is happening here is that if you focus on the breath, that is the first stage, and then of course the brainwave patterns also start coming in. So again, we keep repeating that you can only do one thing at a time. You cannot do two things at the same time. So if I'm focusing on my breath, naturally the other thoughts in my head are bound to slow down or not be there.
The Archer's Secret. The winner of the 1988 Olympic gold medal for archery was a 17-year-old woman from South Korea. When asked how she prepared, she replied that the most important part of her training was meditating for 2 hours each day.
So again, when you're meditating, you're slowing your brain wave pattern down. You're systemizing it. You're attempting to synchronize the left side and the right side of the brain.
If we want to get better at reaching a state of flow, meditation is an excellent antidote to our smartphones and their notifications constantly clamoring for our attention. One of the most common mistakes among people starting to meditate is worrying about doing it right, achieving absolute mental silence, or reaching nirvana. The most important thing is to focus on the journey.
Again, there is nothing right or wrong. Okay. The point is to be able to access that state of consciousness, and it doesn't happen overnight. So the more you practice, the more you will be able to achieve that state of consciousness. Of course, we are very lucky that today we have technology to take us into these states of consciousness. We have biofeedback tools to actually tell us that, okay, what is your state of consciousness? Previously, the guru used to do that. The guru could actually see the state of consciousness of a student. Now, unfortunately, we don't have those gurus. So at least in awareness, we are bringing technology in to take the place of the guru, to be able to tell us as to what and what state of consciousness we are in.
Since the mind is a constant swirl of thoughts, ideas, and emotions, slowing down the centrifuge even for a few seconds can help us feel more rested and leave us with a sense of clarity.
So every thought you have in your mind is a sparking of the neurons. And every time they spark, they consume energy. 70% of all the energy that we have in our body is consumed by the brain. So if I can slow down my thinking, I can be in a state of stillness. Imagine the amount of energy which is released for doing other stuff.
In fact, one of the things we learn in the practice of meditation is not to worry about anything that flits across our mental screen. The idea of killing our boss might flash into our mind, but we simply label it as a thought and let it pass like a cloud, without judging or rejecting it. It is only a thought, one of the 60,000 we have every day,
So we are
according to
having
some
multiple.
experts.
We are having multiple thoughts. We are having thousands of thoughts. The point here is whether we are engaging the thought or not. So in our workshops, we constantly tell people that, okay, you've had a thought, the thought has come. Okay, just accept it as a thought. Don't engage the thought and take it to lead you to another thought. And slowly what starts happening is the thought will come, and then there'll be a gap, and then there'll be another thought. And slowly this gap between the thoughts will start to increase, where you will be going into a state of no thought, or you will access that deeper state of consciousness through that gap between the two thoughts.
It is only a thought, one of the 60,000 we have every day, according to some experts. Meditation generates alpha and theta brain waves. For those experienced in meditation, these waves appear right away, while it might take a half hour for a beginner to experience them. These relaxing brain waves are the ones that are activated right before we fall asleep, as we lie in the sun, or right after taking a hot bath.
So
We
again,
all we all carry a spa with us everywhere we go. It's just a matter of knowing how to get in, something anyone can do with a bit of practice.
okay, so again, we've all seen the brainwave patterns. We've seen the alpha, beta, theta, delta, and using the mind mirror, we can actually see it on the screen. Incidentally, we are going to have another international event in which they've invited entire awareness family to join. That's going to be on the 13th of September, where I don't know what they have planned. Either there'll be some healing someone or everyone going into tune. We are going to have 6 or 7 people hooked onto the mind mirror, and we'll be observing their brainwave patterns on screen like we did once before. Now things are getting more systemized. We're getting more We are getting better at actually synchronizing things and starting up on time, etc. So that is something that is going to be very interesting going forward. Okay, but we all know about this alpha and theta brainwave pattern.
Humans as ritualistic beings. Life is inherently ritualistic. We could argue that humans naturally follow rituals that keep us busy. In some modern cultures, we have been forced out of our ritualistic lives to pursue goal after goal in order to be seen as successful. But throughout history, humans have always been busy. We were hunting, cooking, farming, exploring, and raising families. Activities that were structured as rituals to keep us busy throughout our days.
So again, you're engaging in activities all the time. But what is the consciousness with which you are engaging on those activities, which make it very, very important. So any kind of ritual you are doing, what is the state of consciousness with which you are doing it?
But in an unusual way, rituals still permeate daily life and business practices in modern Japan. The main religions in Japan, Confucianism, Buddhism, and Shintoism, are all ones in which the rituals are more important than absolute rules. When doing business in Japan, process, manners, and how you work on something is more important than the final results.
So again,
Whether
what are they dedicating on? They are dedicated on the process. So when you're dedicated to the process, then you're not really concerned about the outcome. So there is no anxiety left. You're just doing the best. You're just doing every time you're doing it precisely and with precision. So the result is bound to come over a period of time.
Whether this is good or bad for the economy is beyond the scope of this book. What is indisputable, though, is that finding flow in a ritualistic workplace is much easier than in one in which we are continually stressed out trying to achieve unclear goals set by our bosses.
So when you're allowed to get into the flow, you know that, okay, this is what I need to do. So there is no ambiguity. It reduces the stress. Now, if you're not told as to what your goal is, then how are you going to achieve it? It becomes a very big question mark, which is the main cause of stress in our normal westernized kind of day-to-day life.
Rituals give us clear rules and objectives which help us enter a state of flow. When we have only a big goal in front of us, we might feel lost or overwhelmed by it. Rituals help us by giving us the process, the sub steps on the path to achieving a goal. When confronted with a big goal, try to break it down into parts and then attack each part one by one.
So I would not like to use the word attack. I would say that, okay, deal with each part separately. So whenever we have a huge task. If we try to take the whole burden on ourselves, it becomes a huge problem. So you need to break up your task, take smaller steps. Because if I want to climb the 10th step, I need to go through the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, so on till the 10th step. So if I'm focused on the 10th step, but I don't even know what's happening in the first step, I'll never be able to achieve my goal. So it's always better to break up your tasks.
It's 3:17 p.m.
Yeah, just let's finish it. It's just one page left.
Focus on enjoying your daily rituals, using them as tools to enter a state of flow. Don't worry about the outcome, it will come naturally. Happiness is in the doing, not in the result. As a rule of thumb, remind yourself rituals over goals.
So again, the moment you're not worried about the outcome and you're enjoying the process, then you suddenly start shifting into effortlessness and suddenly things start to happen.
The happiest people are not the ones who achieve the most, they are the ones who spend more time than others in a state of flow.
So again, you may have all the money in the world, you may have all the comforts in the world, but you may not be happy. But if you are in a state of flow, then automatically you will be happy.
Using flow to find your ikigai. After reading this chapter, you should have a better idea of which activities in your life make you enter flow. Write all of them on a piece of paper, then ask yourself these questions. What do the activities that drive you to flow have in common? Why do those activities drive you to flow? For example, are all the activities you most like doing ones that you practice alone or with other people? Do you flow more when doing things that require you to move your body or just to think?
So this is important. Okay, I suggest everyone take a picture of this and let us really work on this for ourselves. So making a list of all the stuff that really makes you happy, puts you into a flow, and then, becoming aware of them, and then doing more of those activities which take you into the flow, and dropping those activities which are not taking you into the flow, or inversely, actually creating the flow in the activities that you need to do. You get that? So anything that you're doing, you can actually start changing your perspective, the way you're thinking about it, and allow that activity also to take you into a flow.
In the answer to these questions, you might find the underlying ikigai that drives your life. If you don't, then keep searching by going deeper into what you like by spending more of your time in the activities that make you flow. Also, try new things that are not on the list of what makes you flow, but that are similar and that you are curious about.
So again, you need to keep doing something new, raising the bar, allowing you to experience new stuff. When you experience new stuff, that is when the neural connections start to grow. So you never know, you may find your ikigai in something else. So you need to start keeping on doing something new in your life, and then constantly also do anything that is keeping you in the flow.
For example, if photography is something that drives you into flow, you could also try painting. You might even like it more. Or if you love snowboarding and have never tried surfing.
So again, what is it saying? That anything that gets you into the flow, if you find a similar activity to that, then maybe it will also lead you to a state of flow.
Flow is mysterious. It is like a muscle. The more you train it, the more you will flow, and the closer you will be to your ikigai.
So again, it's like a muscle. So muscle memory. The more you practice it, the better at it you will become, and the more you will be able to access the state of flow. Okay, so this is important. Please make a list of all the stuff that takes you into the flow. And then we can discuss it tomorrow or whenever, if everyone wants it. Okay, so we can stop